Go. Okay. Welcome to this 2019 0530. Uh,
Subscribe.
and I, what's that?
Never mind.
Okay. I'm okay. Yeah. So we were going to talk about later today about the CPA stuff, but Josh can't make it actually and messed up his calendar. So in fact, we're not. But we have lots of other things to talk about. What were you going to start with? Oh, repr align enum central.
So this one, Scott just checked their box. Looks like it should be an FCP now.
Yes, but RCBot has I think GitHub is just slow, but if I say something like RCBot review, then
Okay.
Okay.
A lot of excitement there.
and now it's done, and then we can not nominate it.
Okay. Allow lifetime elision in pin and mute self. What is happening here? Somebody explain.
A mess. Yeah. A total mess.
Oh yeah, this one again.
This is such a mess. So self, when it contains lifetimes and appears in the self part of methods, has different elision rules because it's anonymously like containing lifetimes that are part of the self type. And I don't.
Can you write?
I don't know. Central, maybe you can explain the specific thing that's going on in this PR. I haven't followed the conversation on this one enough to understand why pin and mute self specifically is special. My understanding is it's just the only place today where we can have lifetimes in addition to self.
Well, it was special, and then I left a comment, and now it's not special anymore, which means that the title is sort of misleading. Sort of. So it's the only stable type which you can nest in this way. You can't write box and self or unmute self, but you can do it with the arbitrary self types feature gates. So what I think this PR is doing right now is that it's recursing into all type constructors or other all the places the type expression is allowed inside a type, and then it's trying to find ampersand, optionally mute s, where s refers to the self type, either by writing self or by actually being the self type. Like you could write foo instead of self if you want to.
Can someone just clarify what the behavior is today?
That is a really good question.
Like what is the bug?
So there was a bug before where and mute self, if it appeared with other lifetimes in the signature, behaved badly with elision, because you want to have something that's like an mute self method, and then it has an mute something, parameter, and then there's an mute output, right? So today on stable, that works, and that's bad because it's ambiguous which lifetime it's referring to. And that was done because we skipped the self type when calculating elisions in some like legacy code that didn't know about arbitrary self types.
So can you make that example, like type it? Are you able to type? Is this the example you're talking about?
Right.
Probably not. It's probably something else, right? Like this or something.
So this is particularly an issue specifically with like impl foo. You're doing two space indents.
Yeah, that one true indent, which we'll never adopt. If there's one thing I could have changed about Rust, it would be two space indent.
Oh my gosh. Oh my
that is not the one thing I would change.
No, not even close. Anyway, moving on from that. Anyway, so this, this was specific to pin because of the way that we skipped the self type.
Presumably, we make this equivalent to sort of that, right? To this, to the F. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Right. And that's not what we want.
Yeah, that's not what should happen.
It's clearly wrong.
Right. That's bad, because you would want that changing something from mute self to pin and mute self isn't
that's really
causing
collision. Yeah.
Change. But I think
obviously wrong.
And so there was initially a change to undo that entirely and look at the self type, but then that broke other stuff, and that's the part where I don't understand what's going on. And I think Eddie and maybe Central are the only ones who do.
Can we not like ban this? So if we detect that this happens, we just throw a fix, like make an error.
We could just disable, like certainly to give ourselves time, we can disable elision, right?
Yes.
In the case.
Because I don't feel comfortable just accepting this PR without thinking it through more.
So I mean, we certainly can't like just disable elision in arbitrary self-type signatures today. Like that's massively stable breaking, right?
I'm talking about when pin appears or whatever.
Right, that's stable. You can write stable functions.
I know. You're saying that would be massively breaking to just disable it with respect to pin. There's enough code.
Correct.
Around. Okay.
Right.
Is it? Because
it like all the like futures API stuff is like DOA would be DOA unless we like did a bunch of backports.
So there's basically three scenarios. I mean, we could if you had more than one reference today, like this, it sounds like, if I understand correctly, if I had something like so, it would be an error because we're not triggering the like self wins rule. We're only triggering the other rule. So really, this is the case. And like I'm trying to understand what code would break. So this code, I guess, works today as expected. So maybe I'm wrong about the third line case.
So Nico, have you seen the original issue for where this was brought up? I'll link it here. It's 52675. I've linked it above. Here, I'll indent it to make it.
I did look at it, but I didn't understand it.
So today we skip. We don't consider elided lifetimes in the self type in an arbitrary self type as being like part of the normal elided lifetimes. They're just like their own independent lifetime.
Right.
Okay, and that's buggy, as you can see, like from this example, it's just skipping over the self type. So if you have an elided lifetime that appears in the output, it says, hey, there's no corresponding lifetime in the input. And that also means that like if you have a lifetime in the input, and another argument with a lifetime in the input, it only knows about the second lifetime argument in the input. So this isn't just a thing for pin. Pin just happens to be the only place where anybody actually like really uses this today.
Right.
So like you can
is there an error we can do to make an error in a narrow case? Like there's one case that's doing the wrong thing.
I mean, it should just do the right. I don't think we want anything to be an error, right? I think we just want it to do the right thing.
Maybe.
We want to ignore the pin there, basically, and pretend the pin wasn't there, because pin doesn't have a lifetime in it.
I'm not sure I follow that.
So one thing you might do, like if you would do this in a general way, you would recurse into all type constructors from left to right, and then just find any ampersand, possibly mute stuff.
Yeah, any syntactically elided lifetime that appears, you should.
Yes, it's pretty important that it's syntactic, like that it's occurring.
Yeah.
At least
Right,
that's
so
what
I think
Tyler's
the issue here
implementation. That's important.
But
Right. So I think the thing that was going on here, right, if I'm understanding this, the why the initial fix was broken, it's because self, like it looked at not just syntactically elided lifetimes, but any elided lifetime, which included lifetimes that appeared in the literal like self type, like when you
Yes.
spell
Like
like
in
capital SELF. And so I think it just needs to be like I think this is just a bug quote, right? Like where we need to only care about the actual syntactically elided lifetimes rather than the ones that appear underneath the self type or
That's
other
not
like aliases.
it's not clear to me that if you mention ampersand mute self, that should be considered like if you wrote ampersand self. I mainly think that we should error so that we have more time to think.
Can you explain? Can you dive into that more actually? Because I would definitely expect that writing and mute self and self colon and mute capital SELF would be equivalent.
Right. So if you are mentioning like is the type itself and the trigger here, is that the important thing, or is it is ampersand itself something special?
I'm not sure I understand. What's the distinction you're trying to make? Are you saying like if I wrote capital SELF versus writing the name of my type?
Like if you write one sec. Do we consider like do you assign special meaning to ampersand itself when you haven't written on any type? You could possibly do that.
So I think that those two things should be the same. I think that here let's make this.
I think that not only should they be the same, but that going back a very long time, they were actually desugared to the same thing in the compiler. Like, in other words, from 1.0 or something like that. I have to go check, but
this is probably not doing this would probably be a breaking change in any case. I think
it's kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah. But
Right. I think there's.
But they aren't different.
Well,
because
so my point is that I think that those two things should be different. The example, the last example I wrote is different because the foo with the tick underscore and even like if we can get rid of this and just imagine that it's elided, right? Those should all be that there's like a tactically appearing elided lifetime there, which doesn't appear in self. Like the words, the self does not include an elided lifetime in the way that I'm thinking about it.
Okay, but what if we remove this and write just simple foo and then this?
Then those two should be the same.
But this is not syntactic. Like how we don't know just from looking at this that this is the self type, but we know with Baz that it is the self type.
No, we do know that that's the self type.
But not syntactically from Biz. We only know that if we know import.
I'm not sure what's the distinction that you're making here of like.
Well, it's like how far away do you have to look? Like
the compiler knows here that what the self type is.
Sure, but I'm guessing that we are doing this for humans, not for the compiler, because I mean we could do indication of if we wanted to.
But the humans are depending on the self part, I think, because this is a like weird extra case. Do we ever state what the actual rule is supposed to be, like thoroughly for this somewhere?
There is something.
I dropped a comment in the PR about I want to know what the new rule is, because it's clearly whatever the PR is doing is different from what's in the reference right now.
Right.
Which might be fine, but I don't know what it is, and I'm not sure what it's supposed to be, especially with arbitrary cell types.
I'm just doing some testing as an aside. Our current behavior matches Taylor's intuition. I think it also matches mine. I don't know the answer to whether we have a good. I would like an outcome of this discussion to be a good rule. Like I'd like us to write it in the reference. I think I agree with Taylor that it should be syntactic, partly for implementation reasons, but also just because it's.
But is it syntactic? But is it syntactic if you can say self colon ampersand foo?
Self colon ampersand. You can't do that today.
I think we mean syntactic in terms of whether or not an elided lifetime appears in the type.
Right.
I'm referring to the self type itself.
I'm saying referencing capital self and referencing foo are potentially distinct things.
From the point of a human, I think.
I don't care about that. Like, are you saying that like today that you just can't do that?
I think you can.
Who are you talking to?
Oh, okay. Well, that seems fine to me then. I don't understand.
So I put it in the text, the current text from the reference.
I'm very confused in general.
Which is of course not authoritative, but is about the type, not the syntax.
What does it say? Oh,
if the receiver has type, I pasted it into the thing there.
Oh, that is not correct.
Okay. Yeah. So this is, I think, the biggest problem I'm having with this whole discussion is I don't know what the rule we even want to be, and if there was, did the arbitrary self types RFC ever talk about what the rule should be for arbitrary self types?
So I'm actually confused by this. If the receiver has type and self or and mute self, like I feel like that this could be far more general. Like the lifetime of
arbitrary self types
any
exist,
any type in any argument position that is a syntactically elided lifetime should follow that rule. If there is a unique syntactically elided lifetime in input position, then it should be the lifetime that gets assigned to elided output parameter.
Or the receiver. Right. Yes.
I'm not sure I followed that.
It has to be for the receiver.
No.
Well, the receiver has a different rule.
No, I mean you can have a method that takes self and that like just self by value, and then have another elided argument, and then return like the elided lifetime from that argument. Right, like that works today.
Right.
The elided lifetimes don't have to appear in self position.
But if you do have a self, then
if it doesn't matter whether there's a self or not. It matters whether there's a single unique syntactically elided lifetime in input position.
Well,
right.
That's one of the rules. There's another rule for self.
Yes, there is.
What's the other rule that you're picking out?
If there are multiple lifetimes, or maybe if there's self, this is unclear to me. But if it's ambiguous which one to use, it will use the self one.
Yes.
For what it's worth, the following things, I just want to point out that this line in particular, at least presently, compiles, which I found interesting.
Curious.
Doesn't match.
No, I mean that's what I would expect, because tick underscore there isn't necessarily tick A, so it's not necessarily the self type.
Oh yes.
But my point is that
what happens if you write fn foo self colon ampersand tick underscore self?
That should work.
I feel like we've come up with
tick underscore pretty quickly.
You can try that.
My point is more that this rule sort of gives a precedence to this lifetime on the ampersand and not this one, right? So there is already some. You can't just say if there's exactly one region that appears in self type.
Well, if there is one elided,
Yeah, but
that's the key.
that's pretty inconsistent because
No.
we also allow, for example, this, for better or worse, I don't particularly like that.
You can
rule.
also use lifetime elision off of a
Wait.
name.
But what does it?
Nico, we don't allow that.
Oh, yeah, we do.
Wait,
But you mean
we
like,
allow? Oh, yeah, because there's an elided lifetime in input position, and there's one elided lifetime in output position.
you could write
There's-
this, for example.
And
Right.
what,
That definitely should not compile today.
what lifetime do you
compile
assign
today?
to the-
It will
That
compile.
compiles
I don't
today,
think-
yeah.
I don't think it should
It
either.
shouldn't, but it does.
I
But
consider it
what
an
I-
anti-pattern, but it does compile.
But what lifetime do you assign to the U8 there?
Okay. In this example,
No, that does.
I would have expected tick B
where there is
or
a-
tick fresh.
what are you talking about? Oh.
Yeah, but I mean,
I think this should be personally, I think this should have been an error. And the rule should have been, as Taylor is saying, and I think Central Europe is also saying, that you can only match an elided lifetime in the output with an elided lifetime from the input. You can't give a name in one place and not the other. That is not currently the rule. Self types are weird. Like we've been sort of steering towards that direction, and there was even talk of deprecating this pattern, for example.
Yeah, well, I just learned a thing, and I'm terrified.
Yeah, I mean, it's got, another case that you can do is something like this. Similarly.
Yeah, I'm surprised that compiles. I would have thought that wouldn't have compiled.
It seems like we need someone to write out a rule.
I think arbitrary, maybe, well, I don't know how much certain we are about what we can change here.
I think we should immediately start linting against all instances of that.
Yeah, the alighting in the
terrifying.
lifetime, I would definitely approve of linting against, but
So
And
I put the example there of the special self rule, Taylor.
I really don't want to make any rash decisions. I mostly just want to give us more time to.
What?
to
wait,
make it.
this foo impl works today? What does this do?
yeah, this should
It
definitely.
uses the one from self. That's the special self rule on lifetime
What?
elision.
Okay, I'm done. This makes okay. This is completely broken my mental model, and I'm very upset.
I mean, the rule is, how I think of the rule is, you use if it's an ampersand self or an ampersand mute self, that's the lifetime you use. Otherwise, you look for a unique lifetime. And that's
Yeah, which is different from how I
matches,
understood it, actually.
it matches everything,
No.
but not this extended variance. Like, it doesn't apply to what you do with pins. But
Okay, I misunderstood this issue, and I want nothing to do with this.
So, do we have an RFC that says you can use the special self elision with arbitrary self types? Or is there only RFC for lifetime elision that the self
not
rule
even a
is
merged
for
RFC for
ref and ref
There's
mut
not even a merged
only?
RFC for. There's not even a merged RFC for arbitrary self types at all. There's no RFC for this.
so I
Okay.
think somebody needs to volunteer to write this rule out and take charge of this. That's what I think.
Yes, I
Yeah.
feel.
So
But it seems to be urgent.
I think we should not mirror this like lifetimes in self position thing for pin mute now that I understand what's going on, because I don't think this should exist in the first place, and I think we should start linting against it everywhere.
I
think I don't agree fully with that opinion, but possibly some parts of it. Like this example, it doesn't bother me. This example does. But there has been a proposal once upon a time, if I recall, to make this illegal. That's
time
Why
is
does it need-
34, so we
yeah, I
might
know.
need to.
So who is the person who's going to sort of do the research here? That's what I'm asking.
You are, I think.
Damn you. I sort of think that's probably true. I'm not very happy about it. All right, I will do the research. How hard can this be? I will talk to Eddie B and look at the code and try to make some kind of pair this down.
Before we move on to sterilize _constraints, I just want to mention that I worked with PR to swap the order of unsafe async FNs so that it is async unsafe FN, because that's how const FN works. I just want to mention it, and I'm going to rebase it soon.
Wait, what? Oh, you're talking about something completely different, right?
Yeah, the swap order of unsafe thing.
All right. This thing.
Yeah, that one.
There's some precedent for why unsafe should go later.
Yeah, it's const unsafe FN unstable, not unsafe const FN.
That seems like pretty clear then.
Yep. So I'm taking this.
So what is this stabilize underscore const names in 1370?
Yeah, we should probably scroll down to the nominated issue because it's there as well.
That's what I thought. Okay, that's why I was confused. Is that the rest? This one we can defer, I think. Never type, well, can defer that. We're trying to prioritize here. Let's talk about this one. Lots of stuff here. Go on, Central.
So this is the RFC for writing const underscore type and then expression equals expression. I have written a mostly done stabilization report, but I sort of, when I had written most of the report, I sort of was, oh no, I think there's probably something better we can do, which is not underscore and then stuff inside. So one of the things we already allow is use path as underscore. So we could also allow mod underscore and stuff inside. That would marginally generate fewer tokens in macros, but the drawback of this is that it's not an expression, so you would generate more tokens for macros that need like const assert. But mod underscore would be better for derived macros, I think. So it's like pros and cons between which one do you think is better. And then there is so mod underscore probably doesn't have any generalizations, which could be a good thing. So it's sort of finished after that. And whereas const underscore could be extended to patterns, and then there's questions of what do we do in with those when they are associated type items, and do we want to extend them to allow any arbitrary irrefutable patterns, and what about static? So that's a quick summary, I think.
So mod underscore would be some kind of anonymous module. Is that the idea?
Yeah.
Why would we call it mod underscore, not just mod? But anyway, so so that would mean you'd have to. It's a little bit different than use foo as underscore, I guess. Like, it's certainly different in purpose, but you would also need to like use super, as I wrote there, right?
Sorry, if you have mod underscore, is that a module whose name you can't mention, or is it like an automatically used all the insides, or can you only put impls in it, or?
It's a module with a name you can't mention. Okay,
so you can't use anything from inside of it.
So the idea would be that you can make, like, instead of const underscore, I can make like sort of, instead of this,
you make the
some code that has,
instead of const underscore, you have a named const inside an unnamed module.
Yeah, I guess so.
If you need an expression, but
yeah.
In cases you would just put an impl inside the model and then we're done.
But why would you put an impl in there?
Because that's
so it's not for impls, it's for like functions and things that need to type check for the purpose of having compile time assertions on proc macros?
So it depends on what we want to do. If your goal is
Those are the use
mostly
cases of this that I know about.
well, it's also useful for derived macros, I think.
Right, but that's for this, for those assertions.
Right.
Mm. Interesting.
I am fine with mod underscore, but I think that we shouldn't block const underscore on this because I think it's fine.
I don't know. They both feel like a weird hack to me, and
Sure.
without like clear benefits either way. But
I think that const pattern isn't a hack if you generalize it, possibly. I think that would be actually useful.
Yeah, naming the parts of a const fun that returned a tuple or something, I could see it.
Yeah. Boats also thought it was.
It's a bit of a stretch, but I could see it. It's not insane.
Cool.
couldn't we just have like?
So,
I guess that's the same thing as an anonymous module. I was going to say just some anonymous const. Here's some text. Here's some stuff. But
I think const constant and followed by a block makes sense as an expression form, but I don't think it makes a lot of sense as like as an item.
Yeah, it's fine. I don't care very much, but I feel like it's not. I guess that I think what's bothering you, Central, is the sort of incompleteness of const underscore, right? The lack of generalization to const patterns and the fact that static may or may not want.
But it's not just static, it's like associated items. It feels like a can of worms, but on the other hand, it might be better for it works better for const assertions. So that's maybe like I'm unsure. If anyone has a good rationale I can use, that would be really nice because I'm writing the report.
Sorry, Central, I missed what exactly are you asking for rationale for?
Like a good reason why underscore const underscore is the better choice instead of mod underscore.
I thought we were just talking about how it's generalizable to patterns, and then there's also the point about that we have an RFC for it, but
Right.
and it's implemented.
Yeah, but implementation takes like a few hours. That's easy.
Has anything happened since the RFC? Did something change? Part of me says, we had an RFC, we had all these discussions. Did anything new arrive?
We didn't really discuss this, I think. That's the problem.
I think it got brought up, didn't it? I remember seeing things about mod underscore before.
I feel like it was
very marginal.
It doesn't feel like a new point to me.
So, maybe does this point make sense to you? Const underscore accepts an expression on the right hand side, which means that it's more convenient for macros.
Then what?
Then mod underscore. Does that make sense as a rationale?
Yeah. I mean, the alternative is that you'd have to put a function inside of it, so it's vaguely more convenient, I guess. But doesn't really. I don't know. That wouldn't really strongly sway me either way, I guess.
Okay. Then I have my rationale, and then I can.
All right, we'll live with it.
Type.
Okay.
Good.
You might. So maybe there's no reason to put patterns in module names because that makes no sense. But patterns in const names does make sense.
Yes.
There you go.
Unless
Of
you
course,
could do
we
mod
also
open
have,
parent
like,
A,
use-
comma B close
We
parent.
do also have like use name as underscore though, or use path as underscore. So
Yes.
there is kind of a
Yeah.
weird
But
path.
it's for a
and
totally different purpose. I don't know.
It is.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think, but I think I have enough material to go on, so I will unnominate this and go on writing the report, and you will probably have the report done in a few hours.
All right then. So which thing should we discuss next? So I'll just run down. We did allow lifetime elision. There's some data from NLL, but I think that's not a good choice because I don't want to. TLDR, we'll have to migrate traits as we expected.
Should probably add an action item. Probably add an action item to the pin stuff. Sorry, the lifetime stuff for Nico too.
I did that already.
Oh, you did.
Well, I put it under last week's action items, but anyway. So there's stabilize never type again. There's this type alias enum variance discussion.
So
I sort of think some of these nominated, we could spend a little time discussing these 3 nominated RFCs and what we plan to do about them. This one I'm going to talk about.
So I would like it if we could discuss type alias enum variants, so I can write a report.
All right, let's do that.
So do people know what this is?
I thought that we said that we were closing this.
Hmm?
I have no
Maybe
memory.
I've misunderstood which thing we're referring to.
We're
Sorry.
referring
I think the link to it is going to the wrong place, by the way.
It's the thing on the screen.
Perhaps the link is going to.
49683.
Yeah, the link is definitely not the right place. 49683.
That's fine.
I'll fix the link.
Oops.
Oh, I see what we're talking about. Okay.
Did I do an oops?
No. Let me fix the link.
It's okay. I got there.
Okay. So it's this issue where you can access enum variants through a type alias instead of only through the enum's actual name. So
And notably, you can write self-fulfilling variants, which is really nice.
and just
Except that here
I like the other
in
one
the-
better, actually. But
Except that here in the example, the type that you're constructing isn't actually the self type.
oh yeah, this particular example is an error and illustrates one of the interesting side effects of this, that when you go through a type, you are specifying its type parameters sometimes. Anyway.
Yep.
And this,
yeah.
this seems expected. I think.
That's what I would expect, yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So
But there was
I'll
some kind of future compatibility thing that it came up.
Yes. So to summarize, if we have an enum with a variant and then a trait with an associated type also named variant, if you then project with self variant, then at the moment it would refer to the associated type. But if we accept the the enum variant types RFC, then we would suddenly add the variant into the type namespace. And what Petrochenko implemented is that because invariants are inherent things, it would resolve with high priority to the enum variant, and then you would get breakage. So we have a future compatibility warning that is set to deny, so that people don't do this, and so that we can do the enum variant types RFC as well. if we
Sorry,
want
can
to.
you remind me again, do we support inherent associated types?
No,
Not yet.
not yet.
No, but we should.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, but we don't support it yet, so that doesn't break this, and that'll be a problem when we do support that.
Well, in that case, you can just rename your type because it's then you can just rename the inherent associated type because it's inherent. So it's like you have control over it.
Yeah.
It's not a trait you have to.
Well, you'll get a duplicate name issue if it happened because they're two things in the same namespace that we wouldn't be able to disambiguate in any way.
Yeah.
But no one wants to do that anyway, so. Okay,
Yeah.
but for now, people can do as trait : variant to get their associated variant type if they really want it.
Yep.
So we should be fine.
Yep.
And
the
this
reason
is, we have the future compatibility warning, but it's an allowed breakage, so we're just being nice about it.
right.
In theory. How long has this warning
trait
been in
resolution.
place? When did we decide to put this warning? Why don't I remember this?
Petruchenko decided to do it.
I think it's there now, so it would be there for 2 months, 3 months by the time we stabilized.
It's
This
a
change?
warning. It's
Something like
a
that.
warning on stable, but it's a deny on beta. So it would it would
Yeah.
be a warning for it would be denied for 6 weeks before it gets it keeps being denied basically.
Okay, so we did it in January. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like no one has an associated type of the same name as their enum variant, really.
It doesn't seem. There was a certain amount of churn, but that happened. Okay.
Yeah, we migrated everything that was important, and the other things is people are just not using those crates anymore.
Okay.
So then I should write the report, or how do we feel about this?
I think this is something people have requested for a long time. It seems like we're making the transition. I think you should probably write the report. That's
Cool.
my take.
Can you add something
Concur.
to the agenda? Or I can do it.
This is the one, right? Yeah.
There's too much text here. It's really hard to navigate in this document. We should probably separate the discussion.
Yeah, I agree. It needs like headings or something. Should probably switch.
Yeah. So never type, MLL, and the other things. What do we want to talk about? And the panic in destructors. We have 7 minutes.
So
I don't think panics and destructors are bad, but they're not a safety issue. They're like a bug.
Right. And
It needs to get fixed, but we don't need it to be like U1 or anything.
Right.
yeah,
Matthew is basically working on it, I think, so it's an implementation issue at the moment, not a design one.
I guess I'll unnominate it for the
And I
time.
don't think there's any line questions, really, right?
I don't think so.
It's like
It's pretty clear what behavior
drop should run when drop should
be.
run.
Yeah, I don't think there's any real ambiguity.
It might become in the future, but let's let Matthew do Matthew's work.
There's really only one right time for it to run, I think. So
6 minutes. What do we want to talk about?
So I think here's one thing I wanted to discuss, but so we talked about 2582 last time, but it seemed like we didn't quite get to a a plan. And I was noting this comment by Ralph. There seemed to be some disagreement, I guess, about like, can we take some action here and then carve out the rest of the plan ahead of time? How much do we need to, like introducing ampersand raw or something like that? And I'm kind of leaning towards that's probably what we should do, but I guess I'm curious if people react strongly to that idea. I want to unblock.
Of introduce ampersand raw.
Yes, and trying to sort of committing to that as the syntax and on figuring out that will shape the rest of the story around it. It does feel like it's a potentially large change in some sense for unsafe code authors. I mean, it's going to affect a lot of code. So I think the rule is probably going to wind up being you should just use this like by default when you run a raw pointer, even though there are only a limited set of cases where it actually matters.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of nice to just get the raw pointer instead of having to then cast it to the raw pointer anyway. I could make it a theoretical, unsafe ergonomics point of like, if what I wanted was a pointer, an operator that just gives me the pointer is much nicer than the operator that gives me a thing that I have to cast into a pointer anyway.
Right. It seems semantically more obvious as well. I still need to check whether we can add ampersand raw without anything following it. That's
there was sort of is that a question of like can as in does it affect code in practice, or because I think
yes.
it's clearly
ambiguous in theory, but possibly not in practice. Okay. So we could do a creator run and see. It might actually not be.
Yeah. Ampersand raw plus something else, or ampersand raw minus y is theoretically ambiguous.
But if you just have ampersand raw const, then it's absolutely not ambiguous. That we can absolutely do that. The question is if we remove the const, can we do that? That we have to create a run that to see if it's possible or not.
Oh yeah, right.
But I have to make
That's
time
pain.
to write that.
There's some other word we could use that we could turn into a real keyword following our normal, like, we don't like contextual keywords in expressions thing that we talked about around the addition time.
Right. We did do that.
Raw feels scary to make a keyword.
Can't be raw.
Probably we already have modules.
Part of me says ampersand unsafe, but that's abuse.
It's also ambiguous.
Yeah, it is.
Yes. And we already use raw as a module name in the standard library, so that's nope, that's not happening.
I mean, there's also, yeah, okay. So it seems like we've got some kind of consensus that we should do some sort of syntax. It just, we're not really happy with the choices at the moment.
There is one semantic question, which is if we were able to do ampersand raw, should that be for the same as const, or should it infer the mutability?
I'm not convinced. I sort of like.
Well,
I guess I'm not sure what I think about that. I feel like I'd be surprised if it inferred the mutability.
It could give you a it could give you a core putter non-null. Because then it's not mute or const. It's the weird non-null type that it doesn't have two variants.
We could just get rid of star const and star mute and just have star. Then we have a non-problem. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like we should do something too fancy.
Well, that's what non-null is, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Non-null is the pointer that doesn't have a const or a mute on it.
Star should have been. Perhaps so. I don't know, but it seems like we won't resolve it in the next minute. So I'm going to
Good point.
probably going to try to change the standard aware cargo, which was next week, to be the week after, so that we can do this C parity thing. Because I think Josh was wanting to do that more eagerly. And then I could try to schedule this pointer metadata in vtable for the week after that. Oops.
I think we need to do something about the infiltrate stuff, because I mean it's important for various things, and isn't it important for async await as well?
I agree. I don't know if we're going to need a whole meeting for it, but I'll figure that out. And if so, I will get it on this calendar. How's that?
That sounds good.
Okay. All right. Thanks, y'all. We resolved some things, sort of, I guess. Not really. Spent a lot of time talking about lifetime learning. That was fun.
Well, we now know that no one knows what lifetime elision is supposed to do, so that's good to know.
There you go. Who needs a spec? All right, ciao.